It is a pleasure now to share just a few words with you about our wonderful darshanit tonight, our sermon giver, Dr. Ilana Horwitz. I hope that those of you who are members of Touro Synagogue were able to click on the link and read her bio from our emails, but I see that there are many people beyond our congregational family tonight, and I'd like to take the opportunity to just tell you a little bit about Ilana before she speaks. Dr. Horwitz is the Fields Ranch Chair in Contemporary Jewish Life, Tulane University. She is a sociologist of religion and education who examines how people's gender, ethnicity, race, social class, and religious upbringing shape their life. Prior to Tulane, Dr. Horwitz was a postdoctoral fellow at the Stanford Center on Longevity and earned her PhD in sociology of education and Jewish studies from Stanford University. She earned her master's in international educational development from Columbia University's Teacher College and a bachelor's in business administration from Emory. She is a former Institute for Education Sciences Fellow and a Wexner-Davidson Fellow, and worked for several years as a management consultant and program evaluator. She is the author of 3 books. Her first book, God, Grades, and Graduation, Religion's Surprising Impact on Academic Success, in 2022. Her forthcoming book, her second book, The Entrepreneurial Scholar, forthcoming with Princeton University Press, and her third book, The Broken Ladder, Why 2/3 of Americans Don't Complete College and Why That's Not Their Fault, under contract with the University of California Press. I will just say, to cap off that piece of her formal bio, that this is one of the wisest and most productive writers and teachers that I know. It is amazing to watch her work. Ilana is a member of Touro Synagogue's Board of Trustees and a truly cherished thought partner of mine on the future of the American Jewish community and the ways that we're building a vibrant future for world Jewry. Touro is so blessed to have Ilana and Robbie and their girls call Touro home. So it's an honor to invite Dr. Ilana Horwitz to share this bima tonight and offer just a bit of her wisdom and heart on the importance of Jewish institutions.
Thank you. It's such an honor to be here with you tonight on Shabbat Shuvah. Thank you so much for inviting me to talk with you. I should tell you about the genesis of how I ended up here in the first place. So about 6 months ago, last spring, a funny thing sort of appeared on the Touro calendar that got a lot of people wondering, and it said, Ilana Horwitz in the sanctuary, which was kind of an odd thing because I don't work at Touro, and this was perplexing to a bunch of the staff and clergy. What is Ilana Horwitz doing in the sanctuary? What was I doing here? What I was doing was that I had been invited to give a speech at Brigham Young University in front of 5,000 people in a basketball arena, and I was terrified to do this. And so I practiced in every large auditorium I could find in New Orleans, including at Tulane and here in my wonderful home at Touro. You might be wondering, what is a Jewish studies professor doing giving a talk at Brigham Young University, which is populated by members of the Latter-day Saints Church? As Rabbi Bowman mentioned, one of my books is about conservative Christians, and so they had invited me to come and speak about this book, but they asked me, could you please come and talk about your faith as well? And I wondered, I'm not really sure what that means. And I thought about the fact that for people at BYU, I might be the only Jewish person they will ever meet. And I wondered, what should I share with these people? And I decided to use the opportunity to talk about my Jewish life because I wanted them to learn a little bit about Jewish history and about Jewish institutions. So what I'm going to share with you today is the first half of the talk that I gave at BYU. And I titled it, Why Jewish Institutions Matter, because I truly believe Jewish institutions matter, and I want to speak with you today not just as a sociologist, but as someone whose life was profoundly changed by Jewish institutions. So I was born in 1981 in the former Soviet Union, which, as most of you know, is now Russia. And in Russia, being Jewish wasn't just a religion, it was a nationality. So if you looked at our passport, my mom's passport, it was marked Jewish. And yet, despite this official label, my family knew very little about Judaism. I don't think I ever remember hearing the word until we immigrated to America. We lived under a communist regime. It strictly prohibited religious expression. Under communism, the government controlled nearly every aspect of our life, where you worked, what you could say, and even what you were allowed to believe. And religion was seen as a threat to state power because it encouraged loyalty to something higher than just the government. So as a result, places of worship were shut down and religious leaders were persecuted, and most forms of religious education were outlawed. So as a result, I spent my early years of life knowing nothing about religion, anyone else's or my own. I had never been inside a synagogue, I never celebrated a Jewish holiday, and I never read anything from the Torah. My parents actually once tried to send my sister to a secret Jewish Sunday school, but the teacher was arrested, and we never found out what happened to her. Like many Russian Jews, my parents became refuseniks, Jews who applied to emigrate, but were denied permission by the government. And for those of you who were really involved in freeing the Soviet Jewry movement, which I'm so grateful to you for, you knew that being a refusenik had profound consequences. The Russian government viewed emigration requests as an act of betrayal, branding refuseniks as disloyal citizens and potential enemies of the state. So what that meant for my parents and other families was that there were significant personal and professional and social repercussions. But my parents dreamed of raising their children in a place where they could openly practice their Judaism. They had heard that America was the land of opportunity, a country where everyone was guaranteed the freedom to practice their religion protected by the First Amendment, a freedom that they had never experienced under Soviet rule. And so finally, in 1988, when I was 7 years old, my family received permission to leave. Our journey took nearly 2 months. We passed through Austria and Italy, where I had some really fantastic ice cream that I had never had before in Russia, and we were finally able to reach the United States. We arrived in Philadelphia. We had 4 suitcases, a few $100s, and we spoke no English. My parents had to start their lives over completely from scratch. In Russia, they were highly educated engineers, but in America, as with many immigrants, they took low-paying jobs just to survive. My mother cleaned houses while my father worked as an entry-level engineer, and in the evenings, I accompanied them to their jobs cleaning office buildings, where I would dust offices and take out the trash before falling asleep on the lobby couch. Starting over in America was incredibly difficult, but it gave us something priceless: the freedom to connect with our Judaism. With the support of Jewish organizations like Jewish Federation and HIAS, the Hebrew Immigrant Aid Society, we were connected to resources to rebuild our lives. One of the biggest turning points for me was the opportunity to attend a Jewish day school. With the help of many generous scholarships, I was able to receive an education that not only taught me reading and math, but also introduced me to Jewish traditions and prayers and history, and of course, other Jewish children and their families, things that had been completely absent from my life growing up in Russia. For the first time, we learned what it meant to be part of a Jewish community. And there are 2 moments from my childhood that stand out in particular that I want to share with you. The first moment was during my first Passover Seder. I was about 9, and this was an experience that showed me really what it means to welcome the stranger. As you probably know, one of the Passover traditions is that Jews are commanded to invite a stranger into their home, remembering that Jews, too, were once strangers in Egypt. At this particular Seder, my family were definitely the strangers. We had never met our hosts before. They had simply volunteered to welcome Russian Jewish immigrants like ourselves to their Seder. Everything felt foreign to us. Our social class, our language, the way we dressed, our religious knowledge, everything set us apart. And so stepping into this family's beautiful home felt like stepping into a very different world. And yet I remember this family welcomed us so warmly, and they welcomed us as if we truly belonged there. I remember that during the middle of the Seder, the host hid the afikomen. And when he asked me and the other kids to search for it, I hesitated. Was I really supposed to rummage through this strange home, go through their living room, lift up the couch cushions, peek behind furniture, move their books? It seemed so very strange to me. But then again, so much about America seemed strange to me at that time. I decided to play along, and when I actually was the one who found the afikomen, I didn't get a small prize. Instead, the host family told me that they would take me to a toy store over the weekend, and I could pick out anything that I wanted. Going to a toy store was a very big deal for me because almost everything that I owned at that point was secondhand, and so the idea of walking into a store filled with shiny, untouched toys where I could choose something brand new felt really, really exciting. And I remember that weekend standing in the aisles of this toy store, overwhelmed by the possibilities. And then I saw it. There was this beautiful doll, unlike anything that I had ever owned, and that was the one I chose. That Passover, I learned what it meant to be welcomed, not just into a home, but into a community. Which brings me to my second story. A few years after that Seder, soon after we became American citizens, my family faced our darkest moment. I was 14, sitting at home, writing an essay for my English class while chatting with a friend on the phone, and I heard the beep of call waiting. You guys remember the beep of call waiting? I switched over, and in an instant, my life changed forever. A driver had suffered a seizure, lost control, and killed my dad. I was 14 years old and suddenly without a father. Losing a parent is always devastating. But for a financially struggling immigrant family, it could have been completely destabilizing. In an instant, my mother, sister, and I faced overwhelming loss and profound uncertainty about our future. But our Jewish community stepped in immediately. The very next morning, food began arriving at our doorstep. Home-cooked meals, bagels, casseroles. Russians don't really know what casseroles are, but that's what we were told they were. Sent by people we barely knew. Our rabbi canceled all of his meetings and drove an hour to be with us, sitting by my mother's side. At my father's funeral, busloads of classmates, teachers, and parents poured in. My school, was a Jewish day school, even canceled classes for the afternoon so that anybody who wanted to attend could be there. And in the days that followed, our home was never empty. Every morning at 6 a.m., students took hour-long shuttle rides to our house, we lived kind of far, to help us hold prayer services because, as you know, in Jewish tradition, you cannot hold these services alone. You need a minyan, a quorum of 10 people over the age of 13. This communal support wasn't random. It was part of the Jewish mourning ritual of Shiva. And as you know, during Shiva, family members do not leave their home for 7 days. Instead, the community comes to them. The focus isn't on work or daily responsibilities. It's about grief, memory, healing. It's about being surrounded by people who share your sorrow. And so for an entire week, friends and community members sat with us, listened to us, and made sure that we never felt alone. That experience taught me something profound. Jewish communities are not just about faith. They provide a safety net, a deep sense of belonging, and a structure that supports people in life's hardest moments. These two moments remain among the most formative of my life. But I worry that stories like mine are becoming harder to come by. In today's world, more and more people, here I am going to become a sociologist, especially young people, feel deeply alone. Recent surveys reveal that about 30% of Americans aged 18 to 34 report feeling lonely at least several times a week. That is twice the rate of adults over the age of 65. Despite the stereotype of loneliness as an older person's problem, it is our younger generation that is struggling most profoundly to feel seen, to feel supported, and to feel connected. In a moment like this, when disconnection is the norm and mental health challenges are widespread, Jewish institutions have something powerful to offer. A way to belong, a way to show up for one another, a structure that doesn't just respond to crisis, but gives life shape and meaning and rhythm. When we talk about Jewish continuity or the future of the Jewish people, sometimes we tend to focus on the numbers. How many Jews marry other Jews? How many light Shabbat candles? How many send to their kids to day school? But underneath those numbers lies a deeper truth. Jewish institutions are the vessels that carry our values, our rituals, our generosity, and our resilience. They are what make a stranger feel like family. They are what hold us when we cannot stand on our own. And in a world where more and more people feel rootless, disconnected, and alone, these institutions are not a luxury. They are a lifeline. That is why Jewish institutions matter, not because they are perfect, but because they hold us when we need them most. And if we want them to be there for our next generation, we have to show up for them now. Thank you, Shabbat Shalom, and Gamar Chatima Tova.